Okay, picking up with the last video left off. Basically what was being annihilated or destroyed was the culture. The people or the individuals were to be driven out of the land. That's the whole point, or the whole point of the judgment that's taking place here in the books of Deuteronomy and Joshua. And with Canaan, this might have been the only way to do this. In Canaan, however, it is only realized by the Egyptians that the native political institutions could not have easily been replaced, as they partook of a degree of sophistication, thanks to their origin among the Amorites of northern Syria and Mesopotamia, compared with that of Egypt itself. This is according to Egypt, Canaan, and Israel in ancient times. The Canaanite culture was strong and proved to be powerful in working against Israel from within. We have an interesting piece of data to support this approach in the account from the destruction of the Amorite country of Og, found in Numbers 21, verse 31. After Moses had sent spies into Jazer, the Israelites captured its surrounding settlements and drove out the Amorites who were there. Notice that the Amorites in the villages, i.e. the surrounding settlements in verse 32, were driven out, but the royal bloodline and national army was destroyed according to verse 35. That is, the punishment was more national, shows up in the frequent mention of the word nations in this passage, and that the displacement image in Psalms 44:2 is explicit. With your hand you drove out the nations and planted our fathers. Migration was a fact and a way of life, and not a big deal in this time period. Scholars classify the peoples into immobile terminology groups, such as pastoral nomadism, semi-nomadism, transhumance nomadism, etc. Migration and movement was a common way of life with very little notice. Whole tribes would migrate in those days. Remember how the Israelites in the wilderness would depart whenever the cloud moved above the tabernacle, and above the tabernacle was lifted. Movement was constant and quick. The Canaanites had decades of notice authenticated by the miracles of the Exodus, and any sane ones would probably did leave before Israel got there, and abandoned city structures were common all over the ancient Near East and the ancient Middle East from that period. The amount of time God allowed the residents to migrate was substantial. Not only did they get the Exodus information quickly, they got the 40 years of wandering, and even after that the conquest begun. The penetration into the villages and smaller districts was done little by little, according to Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 22, allowing even more time for simple villagers, and hence not serious carriers of the culture, mainly perpetrated by the urban elite of the walled cities, to move north. Israel was never able to sneak up on anyone. Information flow was simply too good. Look at the example of Rahab in Joshua chapter 2, verse 9, and the kings of Joshua chapter 5, the Gibeonites of Joshua 9, Balaam from Aram, Numbers 23:7 and Numbers 24:8. Exodus 23 verses 23 through 26 states, all these nations God's angel would wipe out. Verse 23, remove them from their national, not necessarily personal existence, for surely David had Hittites in his army. 2 Samuel 23 verse 39, and was friendly with the Jebusites. 2 Samuel 24 verses 18 through 24. It was the worship and the practices of these gods that was strictly forbidden. We can size the problem a little here as this. The average city size for the walled cities in Palestine at that time was about 1,000 to 3,000 folks, with many being less than 700. In Joshua 12, the victory list is given as to 31 kings, generally petty kings of city sakes. This would have been around 70,000 people, assuming they all stayed around, a very dubious assumption in light of the international fear of Israel at this time. But this is 70,000, and this 70,000 is against a base of close to 2 million people. Israel was approximately 1.6 million at this time, and these nations were said to be more numerous than Israel in a number of places, such as Deuteronomy chapter 7 verses 1 through 7. This amounts to approximately 3.5% of the target population. The Israelites were specifically told to execute those who remained in the cities, Deuteronomy 20:16, and those who hid in the land and therefore did not migrate out, Deuteronomy 7:20. Granted, the Israelites were less than thorough in their warfare, but this small percentage is a bit ridiculous. This doesn't even seem to be like a serious genocide to me. What's going on here? Let's put a few facts together. Number one, Israel was told to drive out the Canaanites out of the land. Those Canaanites refused to leave, were to be executed. The Israelites were never told to hunt the Canaanites down throughout the utmost reaches of the earth and kill them. If the Canaanites had migrated to a city in a foreign land, the Israelites could have made a treaty with them, and the main point was to keep the Canaanites from influencing Israel's religious culture by removing them from the land, according to Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 18. All right, and I'm going to stop here, and I'll pick up with the rest of this in the next video.